All right.
There we go.
Oh, got a new laptop, so I'm working on this thing to get it better.
All right, all right. So now you don't have to worry about the webcam issue with PMI.
All right, look, man, I'm gonna tell you, this IT department is a look, bro. Listen, I'm just old country boy, man. I'm just simple, and them folks want to
Yeah.
1 plus 1 is not two to them. They want to make it complicated.
Yep. Well,
Okay,
did you
this is
find out if you
all
could take it at the test center, or would you rather just take it at home remotely?
I can take it at the test center. They said I could.
Okay.
And
Give
I've
us some
got
that
everything
options.
set up. Yeah, and like they said I could take it at the test center or in my office. I got my webcam to where I can move it around so they can see it,
Okay.
see the desk and everything. But I've got some options.
Okay.
What would you recommend? I see that's what I want to spend some time now. Just a
Sure.
one-on-one time. I want you to give me some tips, some one-on-one tips, and and tell me, give me the a best case scenario just to kind of boost my confidence a little bit because I'm still
Absolutely.
struggling with the
Okay. And we're talking ACP right now and not PMP, right?
well, kind of both because I'm gonna
Both.
take the
Okay.
PMP, and then as soon as I take the PMP and pass, it ain't no if, it's gonna be an and
There we
pass.
go. There we go.
Um,
Okay.
I'm gonna jump right into the ACP, and once I get through with that, I'm gonna jump right into the SP.
Okay. So, okay. In my opinion, I think taking it at the center is the best because you're going to be in a testing environment that's going to put your mind like, the environment will be different. Like when you're at home, you tend to be a bit more comfortable. There could be some interruptions. You never know. Power could go out, internet could go out, any of that stuff that just might derail you. So if you have the option to take it at a test center and you're okay with that, that would be my choice. Go take it at a test center.
Okay, see, I took, and it's funny you say that because see, the Person View Test Center is uh, a quarter mile from my office,
Oh, beautiful.
and
Okay.
I took it. I took my when the unlimited electrical exam come out on the computer. Oh Lord, 20 years ago, it was with the same group of folks.
Okay.
And I was actually the first one to take the unlimited electrical exam on the computer and pass it in North Carolina. So they used me as a guinea pig.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
uh, so
Well,
I'm
you got
okay
you got
taking and,
familiarity with
and
that.
yeah, and I am, and it's because it gives me the option to mark it and go back to it, and it's simple,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm used to the first two exams were they're only 100 questions long, they're 8 hours, for my electrical exam, and I could, and it was book and paper, and on the computer made it. I finished my exam in 3.5 hours. It was simpler for me, and I'm hoping that because see, right now I'm stressing myself out. Matter of fact, if you can see my all my books
Oh,
and
I see
everything
your
on the
pin box.
bar,
Yeah, nice. Okay. Okay.
I actually I took my flashcards. I don't know if you can see this, and I
I can see
kind
it.
of alphabetized them and put them in a folder. It's the only way I can study. So I just need some serious. Okay, Paul, this is what you need to do. I want to go over some calculations,
Uh-huh.
and, and I'm gonna be doing some more one-on-one with you. I don't care what it costs.
Well, let me first here. I'm gonna put a link into the chat. Seema just passed her exam. I taught her class at the end of July in it was a live class, but which I think was harder because it was 4 days back to back, right? So
Right.
you really that's much harder. And so she passed, and she was kind enough to do a review with me. It's about 15 minutes. Let me see how long is this. 20 minutes, and in it she talks about her experience with Pearson View, her experience with the exam, what the questions are like. So after this call, whenever you get a chance, listen to this video. Let me get a shareable link here. Let me put it in the chat, and this should give you, this is the most recent exam that was taken. So you don't have to
Okay.
worry too much about math questions. You don't have to worry too much about critical path questions. Now, granted, the PMP exam is not static. Everybody gets a different exam. When you get there, your 180 questions they're electronically transferred from PMI, and that's what they give you. and somebody sitting next to you can get 180 different questions, and the next person sitting next to you could get 90 of the same and then 90 different, right? You just don't know. But for the
Right.
most part, as I've been doing this, what is it, 2012, almost 10 years now, 9 years, almost 9 years in December, will be 9 years. PMI tends to operate the same way. The types of questions that people get are the same, and then they tend to switch it up about every 3 to 4 months. Right. Right now, because the exam is new, they have not changed it. So I think you're at a good point where they haven't had many people take the exam. They're still kind of testing it out, seeing like what's good, what's not good. So you can be pretty confident in that. You don't have to memorize too many formulas. You should still memorize them because you never know. The date that you go take the exam be the date that they make a change. But as of now, the majority of the questions you're going to see are what should the project manager do next. And if you're taking have you taken any practice exams yet?
I've taken that one we took in class, and they've got a free thing online, the PMP questions. It comes out of a bank of 2,100 questions, and I'll take 10 at the time. I take 10 and then I review it, and study the answers, and then I'll review. I'll go back and read what I've got, and I've got all the stuff that PMA sent me. I got the online class, but I paid and got the books and everything too. Because I like reading, and I can do better. But they send me all these quick study guides, and I got the stuff from Amazon with my PMBOK and my Agile book and all. And I didn't know how effective them quick study guides were. In your opinion,
let me tell you for the resources that you have. So you likely have a white laminated sheet that has the processes on one side and the formulas on the back side. Then you've got one that one right there. Okay. So that one there, I want you to memorize. That's the three times a day, 10 minutes at a time. I want you to memorize those processes. You don't need to memorize it in that matrix format. What you need to do is just be able to list them off. So if you look at that chart and you start from the left and you go from top to bottom, you need to be able to say develop charter, identify stakeholders, develop project management plan, plan scope management, collect requirements, define scope, perform work breakdown structure, plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, determine the schedule, plan cost management, estimate cost, determine the budget, plan quality management, plan resource management, estimate resources. Right? I need you to be able to rattle them off just like that, all the way down to plan communication.
What you're saying is column one is develop project charter, and at the bottom it's identify stakeholders.
You want to go top to bottom, then left to right.
Top to bottom, left to right. Okay.
Yep. And then if you write those down, you can write them down in one big long column. So develop charter, identify stakeholders, and draw a little line underneath. Develop project management plan.
Okay.
Plan scope management, all the way down till you get to, plan procurement, plan stakeholder engagement, and then draw a line. Then direct and manage project team, manage project knowledge, all the way down till you get to, you should have manage procurements and manage stakeholder engagement and draw a line, right? And then, monitor and control the project, perform integrated change control, all the way down to control stakeholder engagement, and then close project, just one big column. So if you take a sheet of paper and you draw a line in the middle vertically, on one side, you would be able to write all 49 processes down in one column.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you would be able to write out all those formulas. That's on the back of that
all of them on that front page is the 49 processes that you were talking about. Okay.
And then on the back of that page, you see the formulas.
Yes.
All right. You're going to memorize those formulas.
Now, I've got 2 pages of formulas. I have got that page, and then I have got this page and this page. I printed off everything I could from PMI, PMA, you name it, brother. I have printed off everything under the sun.
I like that one from PMA, the one that's there, because if you print out the one that has, you see how it has the formulas in the middle?
Yes.
They should have another one where it's blank, where you can print it out where the middle is blank. Did you see that?
I got you, bro.
Yep. So now you can practice there, and then you turn it over in the back, and then you practice the processes,
Okay.
right? And so if you can go off and print maybe really 49 of those, right? And 49 copies.
49 of the blank ones.
Yep.
Okay.
Because now in 16 days, 3 times a day, 16 times 3 is 48. If you learn one new process each time and one new formula, right? So on day one, you might only remember develop project charter. And then at
Right.
lunch, develop project charter, identify stakeholders, right? And then before you go to bed, you got the third one. Then you're gonna go to bed,
Okay.
and what's gonna happen is now this information I'm giving you is rooted in my background as a teacher, right? I have a master's in education, and the reason why I have you guys do this is because when you go to bed at night, and if it's the last thing that you've done, is you've tried to practice those formulas and those processes, even if you didn't get them all right, your brain will continue working for you. And then when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're gonna do before you even brush your teeth, before you even get up, do anything, you're gonna look over to my nightstand, all right? Wake yourself up, okay? Let me try to write as many formulas now and how many processes I can get, right? Then at
Okay.
lunchtime, you're gonna do the same thing. And then before you go to bed, you're gonna do the same thing. And if you do that 15, 16 days in a row, which is a little over 2 weeks, you will have all the processes and all the formulas down by the time you get to the end of 16 days.
I got that one sheet with the 49 processes that also had a blank sheet. Is that just as good to fill that in as well?
You can, but I don't want you to try to do it in a matrix format where you have one, you have one here in the top, man, then you go fill them in
Right.
here, and then I just want you to do them all in one column,
Okay.
all in one column. So it's best if you use the blank formula sheet because now you get all the formulas in one column. Then you just flip it over on the back, and then you just write the processes down, in one column, and then you're good to go. All right, so that you must do. You need to build that into your daily habits for the next 2 weeks, right? The 52 weeks in a year, you can take 50 of them off, but for the next 2 weeks, that's what you're gonna do. If you want to pass this exam on the first try, that's the first thing. Okay. Now the second thing I need you to do, Paul, is I need you, Paul, to take full length practice exams. I need you to take the full 180. And here's the rationale for that. As I mentioned in class, when's the last time you sat down for a 4-hour, 180 question exam?
CJ, I'm gonna
Years,
be honest
right?
with you. It's been a long time.
Decades.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there's practice that you need just sitting down for 4 hours concentrating, right? Then there's practice that you need deciphering how these questions are written because they're written in a weird like all the following except which, right? You need practice with that.
Right.
Just by doing those two things, you're going to absorb content. Just by memorizing the formulas and the processes, you're going to absorb content. So you need to take 6 to 7 full-length practice exams. Now, the formula that I give, and you don't have to follow this to a T, but if you can, this is what you do. The formula that I give is that, so today is Friday. Tomorrow, you're going to wake up, you're going to practice your formulas and your processes. You're going to immediately take a practice exam. Okay?
Okay.
All right? Then you're going to review it. All the questions that you got wrong, all 180, and you're going to review it. Sunday, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to wake up, do your formulas and processes. You're going to take another practice exam. And of course, both Saturday and Sunday at lunchtime before you go to bed, you're going to review. You're going to do another, practicing of the processes and the formulas. Okay. Then beginning Monday through Friday next week, you're going to go through your binder, all the notes that you took in class with me. You're going to go through all of those notes. You just 30 minutes a day, right? So the commitment is 1 hour a day. One 30-minute session at some point in the day going over your notes. Three 10-minute sessions doing your formulas and your processes.
Okay.
Okay? So that's 1 hour a day. And then next weekend, you're going to take 2 more practice exams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now at that point, you'll have 4 practice exams. And don't expect your scores to go up because they do not go up linearly like that. They're going to hold flat. 40%, 50%, 60%. You're going to be somewhere in that 40 to 60% range, right? Because you're going to be guessing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that you would have had practice, just taking exams, right? So I'm going to get back to the mental stamina aspect of that at the end. But so now, by next Sunday, so 10 days from now, if you follow this, right, you'll have 4 practice exams under your belt. Now you have data because on the PMA website, it's going to show you the questions that you're consistently getting wrong, the questions that you're consistently getting right. So now the following week, instead of reading your binder for 30 minutes a day, you're going to read that PMBOK, but the section of the PMBOK that you're consistently struggling with, right? So when you take the exams, it's going to show you that, Paul is consistently scoring high in these areas and consistently scoring low in these areas. Now, every day, you're going to target read because that PMBOK is dry. It is not a book, right? Do not read it like a book. It is a guide. It will make you fall asleep. So 30 minutes is about all you can take, and 30 minutes in the middle of the day or some point in the day when you're sharp. When you're sharp and you say, okay, this is my study time, I'm going to be reading. You're highlighting the book. You're highlighting stuff. And a part of that also is that when you read the PMBOK, you're going to start to get familiar with the terminology and the lingo. Okay. So now you would have taken 4 practice exams, would have given you practice with the lingo. You would have been studying the formulas and processes for 10 days. You would have done, so that's 3 times a day. That's 30 times doing that. You would have practice with that. And then you would have read your binder for 1 week. And then you would have gone through the PMBOK another week. Now, at that point, you would have absorbed so much content because for about, 10 days from now, and then take another 5, for 15 days straight, you're either reading a binder for 5 days, or you're reading the PMBOK for 5 days, or you're taking a practice exam Saturday, Sunday. Okay?
Okay.
So now at that point, what happens is usually by that 5th or that 6th exam, the time that it's taking you to complete your exam starts to go down. It starts out that it's taking you the full 3.5, maybe 4 hours to do it. And then by the time you get to the 5th and the 6th one, the time starts to dip down to 2.5 hours. Then your scores start to go up. You notice that the score practice exam 1, 2, 3, 4, they're holding steady at 40, 50, 60%. And all of a sudden, by that 5th and the 6th exam, they start to go up. So you end up getting a graph that kind of looks like this. Where here's your score, here's the time it takes, and right here is your point. So you end up getting a graph that looks something like this, where your score is holding steady. By the time you get to that 5th or 6th, it starts to go up. The time it's taking you to complete the exam, it's 3.5 hours, and all of a sudden it comes down. And when you get to this point right here, usually that's where your score is at 80. Now, if you've broken 80 by the 6th exam, now it's 7, right? It's 6 to 7. But at this model, you're going to be at 5 and 6. If you've broken 80 at that point, you can schedule your exam. You're likely to pass. If you have not broken 80, then you need to take a 6th, potentially a 7th, right? But 80 is the magic number. When you score 80 on the practice exam, then you're good to go. So for most people, what happens is the first practice exam, it's like 45, 50. The second practice exam, 45, 50. The third practice exam, they might get up to like maybe a 60. The fourth practice exam, it's like a 60. The fifth practice exam, it might dip back down, right, to a 50. And then a sixth practice exam, all of a sudden they're like at a 78, 80, 82, 83. And they're like, oh, okay, right? So if you're like a 78 on number 6, take practice exam number 7. And then likely you'll get 83, 84. And you're completing it pretty relatively quickly, you're ready. All right.
Okay.
If by the 6th or 7th practice exam you have not broken 80, we're going to have another one of these calls. All right. Okay. And you don't worry about the cost. You just email me, call me. We're going to do this. Don't worry about it. Right. So we're going to have another thing, and we're going to, at that point, now I can look at your scores on the PMA website and see where you're at. We can talk about how you've been studying, what's been going on in your life, because things can happen from now to then, right? We don't know, but we'll talk about that, and then we'll come up with a plan to kind of get you over the hump. But for the most part, 1,800 students, this is the ticket that works, right? Practice exam. That is the best way for you to pass the exam is to take practice exams. Now, that's just the process. When you review, what you're going to notice is that when you're reviewing, when you first take your exam for the first, somewhere between question 80 and 120 is where your mental stamina goes out the window. So what you'll notice is that you're going to get the first, out of 10 questions, you're going to get 6 or 7 right, 3 or 4 wrong. 6 or 7 right, 3 or 4 wrong. And then somewhere between question 80 and 120, when your mental stamina just goes kaput, you're going to get 6 or 7 wrong, 3 or 4 right. 6 or 7 wrong, 3 or 4 right. And when you review your exams, it's going to be very important that you look for that point and you find, okay, what number did I, sort of just tap out? And then you have to tell yourself, for each practice exam, you're trying to push that number forward by about 15 to 20 questions. So if you notice that in the first time that, by question 80 is where I sort of dropped off and I just started getting a bunch wrong, then when you go to take your practice exam the next day, you're going to, before you take the exam, you're going to mentally tell yourself, okay, I need to make sure that I can get to 95, 100 questions before this, I tap out. And then the next one, I need to get to 115, 120, right? And then 100, then 135, 140. You're going to keep pushing your mental stamina, because that's the key for this exam, is that it's so long. And if you think about your job, how often do you sit down for 4 hours without human interaction? That alone is draining. That alone is draining. And then staring at a screen for 4 hours. Maybe sometimes we might do it if we're deep in a spreadsheet or something like that. But we'll have breaks. We'll get up, get some coffee. We'll talk to some people. We'll have some breaks. This exam, you're not going to get a break. So the way I structure it for you does a couple things. One, you're getting practice just sitting down for 4 hours. Two, not only are you just practicing, but then you're understanding where your mental stamina is and you're pushing yourself a little bit more. It's kind of like working out in the gym, right? You're working your mind, right? Number three, right? You are then getting content from reading the binder for a week. You're getting content from reading the PMBOK for a week. You're getting content from practicing your formulas and your processes for that time, right? So now you become familiar. And that's where at that 5th and that 6th practice exam, usually then it takes off. Now it's ingrained in your head, right? So that's why I kind of structure it that way.
Okay.
Last thing I'm going to tell you, and by the way, I'm going to give you a copy of this recording so you can go back, you see the transcript, you can read this. But the last thing I'll tell you is that you don't want to just take a practice exam. You need to take an intentful practice exam, meaning there's 5 or 6 different styles, and you need to find out which style is for you. For some people, I'm going to read the last sentence, and then I'm going to read the A, B, C, or D, and then I'll go back and read the top and the beginning of it, right? Because usually the last 1 or 2 sentences is the question. If you notice when I was doing the review, I could answer it just from doing that. So you're going to do one practice exam where you follow that style. You're going to do another practice exam where you just say, I'm going to try to do all the questions that I know that I can easily answer. Any questions that I can't, I'm going to mark for review, and I'll come back, all right? Another practice exam you're going to take where you say, okay, I'm going to delay all math questions or all quality questions or all risk questions, whatever questions, you feel like you're not that versed at. Right? There's 10 knowledge areas: scope, schedule, budget, quality, resources, risk, communication, procurement, stakeholders, right? Whichever one of those you feel, 2 of those that you feel like, only pick 2 that you feel like, I'm not the best at these. You're just going to skip those and try to answer everything else. You're going to take another practice. So that's 3 styles. You're going to take another practice exam where you take a break every 60 questions, right? Because you have 180 questions. Every 60 questions, a third, a third, a third. Or you're going to take another practice exam where you take a break every 60 minutes, right? Because 60 minutes, you might do 50 questions. 60 minutes, you might do 70 questions, right? So you're going to do one where it's every 60 questions. You're going to do one where it's every 60 minutes, okay? And then you're going to do another one where, let's see, I got you to answer the easiest ones. We delayed the math. We did the 1 for time. We did 1 for questions. We did one where you're going to read the last sentence first. Those are the 5. Yep. Those are the 5 ones that you're going to take. And so now that you've taken those 5 ones, by the time you've done all 5, you're going to realize which one you just prefer, right? For that 6th practice exam, you're going to do that one again. And then more than likely, at that 6th one, when your score shoots up, then you're going to know, oh, this is for me. Now I've pushed my mental stamina, 20 questions, 25 questions each time. So now I understand how to sit down for 4 hours. I understand my body. I understand when I need a break, whether it's every 60 minutes or every 60 questions. I understand the style of practice exam I need to take. I've already read through my binder. I've read the sections of the PMBOK I wasn't doing well. And by that point, you would have gotten all of your formulas and your processes. Mentally, you're ready. So you're going to be very confident. You're going to understand how to take the exam. You're going to understand how to sit there for 4 hours. You're going to understand how to concentrate. And that's the ticket to being able to get into that Pearson VUE Test Center and passing that exam like that, right? First shot. Okay. Don't fool around with, I know PMA has this. If you don't pass it on 3 times, I'm going to get to that in a second. I know they have that, you don't pass it on 3 times to get your money back. But like I said, I want you guys to pass on the first, because your first exam is $550. The second one's $290. The third one's $290. That's $1,030 that you got to pay, that nobody's, even if your company paid for your PMP exam, you still out of the pocket $1,130. So, follow this thing to a T, and you'll get there. And if for some reason you don't, we're going to have another one of these calls, and you don't have to worry. It'll be on me.
I'll be fine. I just, like I said, I want to spend this hour. So it's just a one-on-one. This is good for me. But they also sent me this exam prep book. I have not really looked at this. I've looked at everything else, and
that book has a lot of the scenarios. So there's like there's these practice scenarios where they give you what do they call? Why am I drawing a blank on it? Let me go grab the book. But what it is, it's their activities. That's what it is. Their activities. Oh no, that book is here. No, that's my change management book. Let me grab the book you're looking at.
I see on the PMI website. On the PMI, you there?
Yeah. So this is
on the PMI website. They've got a yes. On the PMI website, they've got the course outline with the web through it. Then you take the quiz.
Mm-hmm.
When I first signed up for this thing, I signed up for it a month before. I was take the class with you, but I went through the whole course and listened to all the videos. I didn't take the quizzes because I wasn't for sure, but I took the first evaluation on the exam. I took the whole thing. I did a 40 on it, and I'm like, it kind of made me ill. I'm like, what? Because I'm just one of these guys that, I've been doing this stuff for 30 years, and here I am making a 40 on the exam. I said, well, something ain't right. But it was my first time taking the practice thing to get me my baseline, and I made a 40, and then I took it again and made a 50. I said, well, I've improved 10 points, so at least I'm on the upswing, so, and that's,
Paul, is nothing wrong with you. You are right in line in here. Since I get to share this with you too. Let me pull this up and share my screen. So practice exam result numbers. Okay. And then let me share my screen. So trust me, this is not okay. So whoops. So here's, you seeing this, right?
Yes.
All right. So I've been tracking for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So this is out of 16 students. So this is a good baseline, right? The highest on the exam. Keep in mind, this is before 2021. So this is when in 4 days I could teach the class in 3 days, and then on the 4th day we take the full length practice exam. Now the way PMI has changed it, they've added enough content where I can't really teach the whole class in it takes me 4 days. If I do it back to back, it takes me 4 full days to teach the exam. So like all of us as instructors, right? Because we broke our class up, we had enough time that we could do half of the class, right? I had a half a class where you guys could take the exam, so I wanted you guys to do that. So just keep that in mind. A high of 92, a low of 30. Now, let me tell you, the person who got 92 passed on the first try. I got a 92, a 90, 4 88s, right? And then there's a bunch of numbers, everything. So those are the 5 high scores. The 4 people that got 88, 2 of them did not pass their exam on the first try. So, and the person who got a 30, he took his exam Monday. The following week, we finished class Thursday, and he took his exam on Monday, and he passed on the first try. So your first scores are not an indicator of whether or not you will pass the exam. So I just want to share this with you, right? The average person gets a 63, 62. They get a 63 in my class. For PMA, the national average in their class is a 56. Right? It just so happens that, maybe because I'm a teacher, I can help people out a little bit. We get a little bit higher in my class, but 56 is the average, right? And if I look at the standard deviations, it looks something like this. If you scored at least a 52 and a half, so 53, you need about 1 week. If you scored a 42, you need about 2 weeks. If you scored a 31, you need about 3 weeks after the class, right? It does not mean that you're not going to pass. It just means that you need a little bit of extra time to get used to sitting down, taking exams. You need a little bit of extra time getting used to PMI's lingo. That's all it is. Now, if we go back and we look, like if I scroll all the way through and all the way down, you'll see all of these numbers here, and so this is what people are scoring on the exam. So you're right in the range. You took a 40 on your first one, you got a 50 on your second one. You're right there. Right there. Keep in mind, this is the first exam. You still got 6 more to go. Right. And likely the one you took was only 50 questions, I think.
Correct, sir.
Yep. So those scores that you were seeing were from the full 200 questions. Or now it's 180, right? The PMI's dropped it down by a little bit. So, and I'll tell you this, that PMA has a master instructor, Greg Ritchie. This guy in terms of the PMBOK, knowing the PMBOK, he's probably forgotten more about the PMBOK than I know. He could tell you, Paul, you want to know about scope? Go to page 269, look on the third paragraph, and that's where you're going to find this, right? It took him 3 times to pass the exam. Some people just aren't test takers. It took him 3 times to pass it. So I focus a lot on, okay, I know you guys are project managers. I know that you know how to do your job. I know that you understand scenarios, right? Or else you wouldn't be eligible. You need the 3 years with the bachelor's or 5 years without. So you got enough of that experience. Now it's how do you pass the exam? So the stuff that I'm bringing you, it'll help you pass any multiple choice exam, right? This is like all rooted in education. So doing it 3 times a day for 10 minutes, right? Frequency over duration, right? 3 10-minute sessions is better than 1 30-minute session. And then looking at your binder, 30 minutes a day. Again, 5 30-minute sessions is better than 1 3-hour session studying, right? And then taking your practice exams and taking intentful exams where you're either taking an exam in a specific way, and then when you review, you're looking to push your mental stamina up a little bit. All of these things is meant to get you to this, sort of championship game, which is the actual exam. So that's what you're doing here, right? You've finished the regular season, which was my class. You're now in the postseason, and you're going to do all these different things. It's going to get you ready for this championship game.
I got you. All right.
So now the other resources that you got. PMA has a blue strategy guide. That blue strategy guide. I want you to read at least chapters 1 and 2, which is pretty much the whole book. Chapter 3, I think, is another 3 or 4 pages. But chapters 1 and 2 are really good resources in that blue strategy guide. Read that whole thing. All right, that's going to give you tips and tricks on how the questions are formatted. I think that's a very good resource from PMA, and I'm not, giving you lip service, right? I don't work for PMA. I'll tell you that's a good resource, right? So definitely read that. You got the white laminated sheet, which you're going to study. I think the colorful laminated sheet that has the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs, right? Where you see like a pink and a green and a blue and a yellow. You don't need to worry about that one. I wouldn't give that any time of day. You can look over it, but I wouldn't study that. And then they have that 2-page.
That it?
Yep, that strategy guide. Yep, I would definitely read that one. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Then there's a 2-pager laminate. There's a 2-pager laminate that's like a quick study guide. Did you get that one? That it kind of breaks down all of the knowledge areas.
I've got everything broke down between test taking and like my the WBS stuff, and so I can blank sheets.
No, you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. Yes. Okay. So that is the one. That is the one that when after you've taken practice exam 6, or if necessary 7, and you've scheduled your exam and you're waiting to take your exam, you're gonna hold off on reading that one until then. When you've gotten to the point where you've broke 80 and you're ready to take your exam, that's the one that you're just gonna read every day until your exam comes. For those 3 or 4 days, right? That's gonna keep you fresh. For now, don't worry about that. You put that one away, but when you get to that point, that's the one you're gonna look at. And then Then there's the Agile Practice Guide. Okay, You need to read that agile practice guide. Yes, because I'm assuming you don't work in an agile environment.
No, not with local government.
So you need to know PMI's flavor of agile, by the way, because PMI's flavor of agile is very different from agile that we use, let's say here in Silicon Valley, where we do Scrum or Scrum.org, right? So that is PMI's flavor of agile. That is how you're going to pass this exam. So you make sure you read that book as well, right? So just to
Okay,
recap,
this is the PMP, right?
yes, for the PMP, that's also going to be valid for the ACP.
Okay.
That's all, but I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna
Okay.
get to the ACP in a second. So we're still
Okay.
talking to PMP. Just to recap, 3 times a day, 10 minutes a day, formulas and processes. All right. Monday through Friday, going through all your study material from the class. Or if you want to practice WBS, if you want to practice risk, any of that, right? Every day, 30 minutes. All right. You're gonna take practice exams, full length, uninterrupted, by family, anybody, Saturday and Sunday. So this weekend, next weekend, okay? The following week, then you're going to read through the PMBOK, for those 30 minutes a day, okay? And then somewhere in between all of that, you got a couple extra things to do, which is read that strategy guide, which maybe you could do that today. Read the agile practice guide. Maybe read that twice, so maybe you could read that today, and then after you get into your 5th or your 6th exam, you can read the agile practice guide again, and then you can read that 2-pager. All right, so that's going to be your ticket. And then every exam that you take, you're looking to push your mental stamina up. When you review, you're looking to find that point where you started getting a bunch wrong all the time, and you're trying to find that point so that mentally your next exam, I'm going to push myself 20 questions more. I'm going to push myself 20 questions more, right? So, and then you're going to make sure that you take different types of exams. One where you just try to answer all the easy ones. One where you don't do any math or critical path questions. One where you take a break every 60 minutes. One where you take a break every 60 questions. One where you read the very last 1 or 2 sentences and you rinse and repeat 179 times. And then the one that you like the best is the one that you're going to repeat on your 6th and your 7th exam. Okay? And that is the strategy for passing this exam on the first try. That's it right there. That is it. It's tried and true. Now, so that's the PMP. Once you complete the PMP, you mentioned the ACP and the SMP. I will tell you if are you already familiar with critical path? Do you use that?
Yes, sir. Some I was going to get you to. I wanted to do one of them today with you, if you don't mind. I've been studying critical path. And but I wanted to, just wanted you to do something so I could see you do it and just get it in my brain again.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll do that. So that'll be your 3rd exam, and I'm gonna do it today, but we're gonna do another session like this where we only do critical path for like a good hour. All right, so that's coming. I'm gonna do one today for you, anyways. And then the ACP.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm not interrupt. Do you do just an ACP seminar and just an SP seminar?
Yes, I do. I do.
All
The
right,
next
well,
ACP one I'm
I'm
doing.
not cutting out PMA or nothing.
No, well, I teach.
Well,
I teach one for
I'd rather
PMA.
get.
I teach one for PMA, so let me look at that date, all right? Because I also respect them as they're a longtime client of mine, so I'll give you that date, and then we can keep everything on the up and up, so to speak. So the next ACP course that I'm teaching is going to be October 14th. And it's on Central Standard Time. I don't know if that's too far away for you. If it's too far away, then we could talk about something else. But that's the next course. It's going to be October 14th and 15th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time.
9 a.m. Central Time would be it'll be 7 a.m. here. I'm only 2 hours. Central's in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Y'all
so
Pacific,
are you on Eastern Time?
Central, and Eastern, right?
You're on Eastern.
I'm on
yeah.
Eastern.
So 9 a.m. Central is going to be 10 a.m. Eastern.
7 a.m.
10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern. Right? No, it's going to be 10. You're 1 hour ahead. So like right now, I'm on Pacific. It's 3:45. That means that it's 6:45 for you p.m. Right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. I'm thinking behind. So it'll be 9.
Mm-hmm. So look for that course on
Central Standard Time.
PMI.
Okay.
Excuse me, PMA. Look for that October 14th course, or you can just email them and say, "Hey, I took my PMP with Cecilio. I understand he's teaching an ACP's course in the 14th. Which one is it? I want to sign up with them and make sure I'm in his class, and they'll make sure you're in the right one."
Okay.
All right. In
All right.
fact,
How about the
let me hold off on that, because what I can do is I can actually get you a coupon from PMA. I'm gonna get you a coupon, get you I think like $100 off on that course. So let me make a note here.
Okay.
For Paul, let's get an ACP, and it'll come directly from PMA. They'll send it to you in an email. So okay, that way, and then you'll get the exact course that I'm taking. So that way, there's no hiccups there. And then for SMP,
Okay.
I don't teach the SMP for PMA, right? I only teach the PMP, the ACP. I do some scaled agile framework courses for them. So for the SMP, that one is a little. The SMP is just about scheduling. PMA doesn't offer the SMP, so that's one that I would teach, directly for you. So let's do the PMP, let's do the ACP, and then when you're done with the ACP, then we'll get you set up for the SMP.
That's fine. And look, if I have to deal with a one-on-one session, I don't care. Whatever it takes, I'm willing to do it. It don't make no difference to me.
I'll help you out, Paul. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm all about getting. Hey, one day I want to see a chief project officer, and the only way to do that is to get as many PMPs in the world, right? So I'm here to help. All right. So now let's do. You good on the PMP? So far, study plan. All right, let's do a critical path session. But know that we're gonna do another one of these, right? You'll schedule another one of these with me just for critical path, because in the time that we've got left today, there's no way that we're gonna, you're gonna need a lot with. There's a lot that goes into schedule management professional. These are for the folks that, if you ever been in a construction trailer and you see the schedule that they got all on the wall, like the master schedule, that's what that is. So there's a lot: critical path, critical chain, methods, and
Exactly what I deal with right there.
Yep. Okay. So, what is the best way to do this? I think, let me get my other whiteboard. Let me get a couple of these. I wonder if I should do the whiteboard or. I think about this. It's always a little bit different virtually than it is in person. I need an eraser here.
There's a good thing right here on that laminated sheet you give me on the back. And that's what I've been looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But
let's use that. That way we have something to
that's early finish. That's critical path, right?
Yes, it is. I'm going to grab one of those right now. 1 second. All right. Let me just make sure the one I got is the same that you have. So I've got activity A. Well, let me put it. Yeah, put yours up. A, B, C, and then the N is 40. The N is in 40, right? Yep. 33 and 40. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what we call, on this version here, is what we call day one methodology. There's day one, and there's 1 day, not day one. There's 1 day methodology, and there's 0 day methodology. Okay? So that's why I say we need a whole nother session, because I need to teach you both of these. Then I need to teach you about float, and then I need to teach you about the relationships and dependencies. And then when I teach you all those, you're going to be ready for the SMP. But so right now we're going to do the critical path, forward and backwards pass, just doing day one methodology. Okay.
Okay.
So when we do critical path, there's a forward pass and a backwards pass. So when we do a forward pass, we're working from right to left, And we're only going to focus on the top numbers, ES and EF. ES stands for early start. EF stands for early finish. Okay, so we're going to work all the way from left to right. And then when we come backwards, we're going to work on the bottom numbers, the late start and the late finish, LS and LF. All right.
Okay.
So before we even do anything, I want you to make a note. When we go from left to right and we do the early start and early finish, and we do the forward pass, we're looking for the bigger number. The bigger number plus 1. All right, so forward pass equals bigger number plus 1. And if you see that on the bottom where it says critical path method, the rules, and they have, the ES and the ES, and they have that on there, it doesn't say this. So somewhere, either in your notes or there, you want to write forward pass equals bigger number plus 1. Okay.
If that's on the second line or the forward pass.
Okay, yeah, they have equal to the latest early finish of the predecessor task plus 1. Good. All right. So good. You already can decipher the language because a lot of times that's mumbo jumbo to people. So that's good. Okay. So then on the backwards pass, you see there on the fourth line, right? We're looking for the smallest number, -1, right? Or the earliest -1, right? So forward pass, we take the bigger number plus 1. Backwards pass, we take the smallest number -1.
Gotcha.
Okay. So now let's take a look. So day 1 methodology says, okay, it's day 1 of our project, and we already have done our estimations. So the exam is going to give you what those durations are. 7, you see activity B, C, D, 5, 10, and 12. You see 15 and 4 for E and F, and you see 8 for G. Now on the exam, on the schedule management exam, it is still going to look like the old PMP exam, meaning this question will be written in this manner. They're going to say, what is the critical path? And they're going to say activity A equals 5, C equals 10, right? They're going to give you all the durations. Then it's going to read something like this. Activity A is a predecessor to activity C. Activity B and D are successors to activity A. Activity E is a successor to both activities B and C. Activities C and D are predecessors to activity F. Now let me just stop there and see how they can say it in 2 ways. You can say activity E is a successor to B and C, or you could say activity B and C are predecessors to activity E. So they're going to write it out just like that, and then you're going to have to be able to draw it out by hand without, don't worry about the critical path, but you're going to have to draw it out by hand. So that's why we need another session for the SMP. For the PMP, they're not going to do that. They're actually going to present you with this graph like this in a visual graph, and then you have to decipher it. So that's the good news, all right? All right. So we see activity 1. And what we do on day 1 methodology is we say, in order to find the early finish, we take early start plus duration -1. And that's my language for what you see on the forward pass in that first line where it says EF is determined by adding the duration to the early start and subtracting 1. Well, I just say early start plus duration -1. So 1 plus 7 is 8, -1 is 7. Now, when you're doing this, I want you to think of everything in columns. How many columns do you see? How many columns of activities do you see?
1, 2, 4.
Perfect. All right. So we are done with column 1. We're done with column 1. There's no more activities in column 1. Right? Now we need to do the forward pass from column 1 to column 2. So if there's only one activity, what's the biggest number of the early finish?
19.
We're looking at column 1 because we got to do a forward pass from 1 to 2. So column 1 only has one activity. What's the biggest number for the early finish?
7.
So now we're going to add 1 to that to make the early start of all the other activities. And the rationale for that is work ended at 5 p.m. on day 7, and work is going to start on 8 a.m. on the next day, day 8. So we need to add 1. So therefore, that's how we get an early start of 8 on activity B, C, and D.
Got you. I got you.
Okay, so that's all you got to remember is on day one
Mm-hmm.
methodology, work is going to end at 5 p.m. on one day, and it's going to start at 8 a.m. on the next day. So we only had one activity in the previous column. We took that largest number, which was 7. We added one. We got an early start of 8 for each. Then we are early start
Gotcha.
plus duration minus 1. So if we see B, we got 8 plus 5 minus 1 is 12.
Yep. That's
We got
13. I
8.
got you.
8 plus 10 minus 1, 17.
Got you.
And we got 8 plus 12 is 20 minus 1 is 19. Okay. So
Okay.
now we're done with column 2. Now we look over to column 3 and we need to do the forward pass. So we see that in column 3, activity E has 2 activities. So we're going to take the activity with the biggest number. Activity E has 2 predecessor activities. What activities are those?
Um, Say that question again. I was kind of taking this all in.
Activity E has 2 predecessor activities. What are they?
Mm-hmm. 2 predecessor activities, B and C.
Okay. What's the biggest number of B and C for the early finish?
17.
So we're going to add 1 because work ended on day 17 at 5 p.m. and work's going to start on day 18 at 8 a.m. Now, the reason why we take the biggest number is because activity E cannot start until B and C are done. And if B is going to finish on day 12 and C is going to finish on day 17, well, we can't do anything until C is done. So we take the biggest number and we add 1. So that's how we get 18. Right? So now for activity F, does it make sense how we get 20? In your own words, explain why we have 20 as an early start for activity F.
Because you got early finish of 19 on activity D, and you have to add 1 for early start on activity F. Because that's your bigger early finish between your 2 activity C and activity D.
Perfect. So that's why we get 20. All right. So then we go back and we do everything methodical. Early start plus duration minus 1. So if you look at activity E, 18 plus 15 is 33, minus 1 is 32. And then if we look at activity F, 20 plus 4 is 24, minus 1 is 23.
All right, explain the minus 1 for me one time, because I'm good with everything else, but the minus 1. Where did the minus 1 coming in?
The minus 1 comes in. The minus 1 comes in because it's, I don't even know how to explain that other than in day 1. First of all, I'm going to attempt this, but let me just back it up and say, because in day 1 methodology, you subtract 1, and in day 0 methodology, you don't. Right? But beyond that, the rationale really,
I understand what you're saying.
Yep. Beyond that, the rationale really is this. Because if you said work is starting on day 8, right? We said if we look at activity E and we say work is starting on day 18, right? Because on activity C ended at 5 p.m. on day 17 and it's going to start at 8 a.m. on day 18. You're good with that, right?
Yes.
So now, and it's going to take, let's use activity F because it's only 4, right? It ended at 19, it's going to start on 20. Okay, so work's going to start on day 20. Day 20 is one day. Day 22 is the second day. Excuse me, day 21 is the second day. Day 22 is the third day. Day 23 is the fourth day. Work is going to finish at 5 p.m. on day 23.
I understand.
All right. So now we're done with that column and we look backwards. We go to activity G and we look backwards. We say, how many predecessor activities does activity G have?
2.
And what's the biggest number?
E and F. Biggest number is going to be 32.
Okay, so if work finished at 5 p.m. on day 32, we've got to add 1 because work's going to start at 8 a.m. on the next day. Correct. That's where we get to 33. And then we do 33 plus 8 minus 1 is 40 again, because if I do 33 is 1, 34 is 2, 35 is 3, 36 is 4, 37 is 5, 36 is 6, 37 is 7, 30. Am I doing that right? But somehow you get it, right? You get it.
Yes, sir.
You subtract right.
Yes, sir.
So now
you got to count. It's like Just like you're saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have
Yes.
9 fingers instead of 10 because you have to start with, I got you.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. Perfect. So now that we've done all the early starts and the early finish, we've got to work backwards. So the rule says, and it's not on here, the rule says that we set the late finish equal to the early finish. And then we work backwards. Right? So let me just so you know, if you were to go back and look at activity A, we have 4 columns. You could have 100 activities in column 1. All of them are going to start on day 1.
Right.
So the rule says that in the first column, all the activities will begin on day 1. The rule also says, and it's not on your sheet, but just that's an unwritten rule, right? The rule says that for your last activity, we set the late finish equal to the early finish, and we work backwards. So whenever you're doing critical path, whatever you get for your last activity on that early finish, you're going to set the late finish equal to that number, and then we're just going to do the opposite of everything we did. We're going to do late finish minus duration plus 1.
Okay.
All right, so in this case, we do 40 minus 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. And again, because day 40 counts as a day, so we got to add that back, right? So that's where we get the 33. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are done with that column. Now we're going to go back, and we're going to look at column E, and we're going to say, look at the second column, and we're going to say activity E. How many successor activities does activity E have?
1. G.
Just G. Mm-hmm. So there's only one number to take, which is 33. That smallest number minus 1 is 32. And then for activity F, how many successor activities does it have?
1. G.
1, right? So we take that 33 minus 1 is 32. Now 32 minus 15 is 17 plus 1 is 18. And then 32 minus 4 is 28 plus 1 is 29. Okay, we are done with that column. Now we got to do a backwards pass to the next column. So activity B, how many successor activities does it have?
1.
1. So smallest number is?
Be 18 minus 1 be 17.
Perfect. Activity C, how many successor activities does it have?
2.
2.
E and F.
Numbers? What 2 numbers are you looking at?
A late start of 18 and late start of 29.
What's the smallest number?
18. So that's right. Smallest number on the backwards.
So we take 17. The smallest number minus 1, 17. And then for activity D, how many successor activities does it have?
1. F. 29.
Minus 1 is?
28.
There we go. It was our late finish number, 17, 17, 28. And then we do 17 minus 5 is 12 plus 1 is 13. For activity C, we do 17 minus 10 is 7 plus 1 is 8. And for activity D, we do 28 minus 12 is 16 plus 1 is 17. We are done with that column. Now we got to move to the next column and do the backwards pass. How many successor activities does activity A have?
3.
What are the 3 numbers you're looking at?
13, 8, and 17.
Okay, what's the smallest number?
Go just the smallest. 8.
And you subtract 1 and you get?
7.
And then you do 7 minus 7 is 0 plus 1 is 1.
Yep. Okay.
There you go. And so when you do now, now that you've done that, first of all, when you're doing this, whatever your very first activity is, because by the way, in actual project management, you typically have 4, 5, 10, 20 activities that all start on the same day. But for the exam, it's always going to be one single activity, right? They're not trying to make this into.
Will they do 1 day or 0? Would they do 1 day or 0 day?
From my understanding, the exam could do both. I know the S&P is going to do both for sure. The S&P is going to do both for sure. The PMP, your exam will be consistent, meaning that if you saw 5 of these questions, they'll all be day 1 or they will all be day 0. So we'll do both, but it'll be consistent. Okay.
I understand.
So I'll teach you 0 day as well. But now, how do we find float? Well, we find float by subtracting the late finish from the early finish. or the late start from the early start. It does not matter which one you want to do. You just do it consistently across the board, right? So
So I
7
can
minus.
stick with either one.
Say it again.
I can just stick with either one, late start or late finish, or early start or early finish to determine float.
Yep. So late start minus early start. 1 minus 1 is 0. And for activity B, 13
Okay.
minus 8 is 5. And then 8 minus 8 is 0. And then 17 minus 8 is 9. Right? And then you got 18 minus 18 is 0. 29 minus 20 is 9. And 33 minus 33 is 0. So now what's the critical path?
A, C, E, and G.
Perfect.
Because it's zeros, right?
Yep, they're zeros. So the critical
Okay.
path is that path that has 0 float. Well, the actual definition of the critical path is the longest chain of activities. In this case, you can only have 4 no matter what you do. If I did A, B, E, A, C, E, A, B, E, G, A, C, E, G, A, C, F, G, or A, D, F, G, it's still four items, right? So it's the longest chain of activities with the least amount of float. Okay, now you see one that has 0, normally 0. So it's like 3 definitions. The longest chain of activities, least amount of float, normally 0. The reason why we say that normally 0 is because when you first do it, you better get 0 or your math is wrong. Since we set the late finish equal to the early finish, when you work backwards, you must get at least one path that has 0.
Okay.
Now, you could get multiple paths. You could get A, C, E, G at 0, and you could also get A, C, F, G at 0, right? So you can have multiple critical paths, by the way. The exam doesn't do that, but I'm just telling you, you can have multiple critical paths, right? So if you ever see that, I haven't had a student that has gotten that on the exam, but I know it exists. So just note that, you may be my first student, but I know that other students absolutely have gotten critical, like a network schedule diagram that have more than one critical path that had 0 float on it.
Okay.
Also know that the critical path is not static, it is dynamic. So that's why we say longest chain of activities with normally 0, because once you start running the project, well, you're going to get a delay somewhere, and there's no project that runs absolutely perfect. So, you might end up with a float of 1 on the path, and then that's still your critical path, right? So when you first do it, it's going to be 0. But as you run the project, inevitably, you're going to get delays somewhere. And by the way, your critical path could change. If on activity F, I get a delay of 10 days, my critical path is going to change to A, C, F, G, and I'm going to have 1 day of float on activity E. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's just for your knowledge, right? Critical path is not static; it is dynamic. It can change, and you can have more than one path that has 0.
Okay.
So now day 0 methodology, now that you know day 1 methodology, day 0 methodology is much easier to teach because all it is that early starts it starts with 0. And so then you would do 0 plus 7 is 7. And then what you do is then on activity B, C, and D, those all start with 7. You don't do a plus 1. And then you would just do 7 plus 5 is 12. 7 plus 10 is 17. 7 plus 12 is 19.
Okay.
Right? And then you would have a 17 on activity E, and you would have a 19 on activity F. And then you would do 19 plus 4 is 23, and 17 plus 15 is 32. So the numbers would still work out. You just don't have to do the, plus 1 and do early start plus duration minus 1. You don't have to do that extra step.
I understand.
So that's all that activity 0 is that if early start begins with 0, then you're not going to do the plus 1 and the minus 1.
Got you.
All right? So that's the only difference between the two. You just don't know if the exam is going to give you day 0 or day 1. So we teach day 1 because it's much harder. But once you get the concept, then it's like, okay, day 0, okay, I get that.
Yep. I got it.
All right?
Yep.
So now we'll do another session because that's critical path. There's something else called critical chain where we take the buffer time out and we add it to the end of the project. right? So I have to teach you that. And then I got to teach you, the relationships. For the critical path on the exam, you will only have a finish to start relationship, and that's what you see there. Activity A must finish in order for activities B, C, and D to start. Activities B and C must finish in order for activity E to start, and activities C and D must finish in order for activity F to start. Activity E and F must finish in order for activity G to start. You only get finish to start relationships. But remember, there's a start to start, there's a start to finish, there's a finish to start, there's a finish to finish. So
Right.
when you start getting those in, it becomes complex. When you start having multiple relationships and then you got to figure out your critical path, you can see how complex that would get on a diagram. So when you go for the schedule management professional, I'll have to like get you several diagrams so that you can practice with multiple relationships.
Okay.
Right. And then we also have multiple dependencies. If you remember, you have mandatory dependencies, you have discretionary dependencies, you have internal and external. Those don't really come into play on the schedule so much unless they're mandatory or they're external, right? The discretionary and the internal ones don't play a factor, but the mandatory and the external ones play a factor, and then you have to take both that into account along with the relationship, finish to finish, finish to start. So we'll spend another day doing that when that time comes.
Okay.
But I think you got critical path now.
Yep.
So on PMAs, if you want, when you go to here, let me share my screen here. When you go to and let's see, I need to go here to see your screen. I need to go to the PMP course. When you go to the resources, then that's PMI resources, course downloads, excuse me. Then there should be a critical path study. Move this Zoom thing out the way. Where's my critical path study guide? Sample forms, code of ethics. Okay, in this PMA exercise book. In the book of exercises from, oh, you got it. There you go. You got it. Okay. So
I told you I printed it all off.
okay. So there's where you're gonna go. You're gonna want to go to the exercises that have the critical path, and I believe those are at the end.
Okay.
Mad Lib exercises. Where's those critical path exercise? Earn value.
I just did a critical path before me and you got on
There it
too,
goes.
and I don't
Section
remember what.
6. Starting on
Okay.
page 35. Section
Mhm.
6 on page 35, you'll have these critical paths so you can practice these. Now that I've taught you, you can go in and practice these and list them out. And then here's another one that you see on page 38.
Yep.
So these are the things that you can do, and you'll be able to figure it out from there.
I got you.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, Paul. Well, that's everything. I know that was a lot. This recording is going to render. It takes about 10 minutes. I'll send it to you so that if you want to review anything, you can.
Okay.
Remember what I told you about taking your practice exam? So you're going to take one tomorrow and one Sunday, and you're going to do that again the following week, and you're going to do that again the following week. So every weekend you're going to take one. In between each week, you're going to read your binder next week or your notes. The following week, you're going to read the PMBOK, right? And then and then the following week after that, you're going to do some combination of PMBOK, binder, study guide, etc. And then your last two exams, 5 and 6, your score should shoot up.
Okay.
And then your time to take should come down. And if you break 80, you're ready.
I got you.
Okay.
All right, my friend. Well, you have give me a little boost of confidence again. It's been a week, so you've helped me tremendously, bro. You don't know how much I appreciate it.
Oh man, that's my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm happy to hear these words, man. So just all I ask of you is that you pay this forward, because you're going to get your PMP, and there's going to be some other young project managers going to come along the way, and just put your arm around them and help them out. And just for me, do everything you can, and don't be afraid to reach out if you need something, because I want you to pass on the first try. So that's what I'll ask of you now, selfishly. Like, that's my thing, is like everybody in my class must pass on the first attempt. So I'll do everything that I can to help you, and all you have to do is follow the guides that I give you, and then if you need something, reach out. You take a practice exam next weekend, and you're reviewing it, and you get 50, 60 wrong, and there's 3 or 4 of those that you're like, I don't quite understand. I don't agree with what the answer is. take a screenshot, write up an email, shoot it over to me. I will respond. Okay, so don't be afraid to reach out. I'm here.
All right, bro.
All right,
Look,
my man.
I
Have a great
appreciate you,
Friday.
brother. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Yes, sir, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.